Barbershop YouTube channel. Let's get into continuation of a new content. I'm done with the book that I read about the dynamic duos, basketball, football, hockey, and baseball and all that. Basketball, baseball, football, hockey. Now I'm getting to another book. Interesting book, football book. It's called The Birth of Football's Modern 4-3 Defense. It's that 7 seasons that changed the NFL. Just get into a very interesting book. 4-3 defense. Let's break this down. In this book, TJ Troop, who did this book, was a Chicago kid where TJ Troop grew up rooting for the Bears in the late 1950s. Home games were blacked out for those he stretched out on his back, tossing his football in the air. He was listening to Jack Brickhouse call the play-by-play from Wrigley Field. Post-game, TJ watched his favorite show, Inside Football, that was hosted by Rick Musburger. Deciphering the arcane language of a then unknown Bears defensive coach named George Allen. According to TJ, a future college assistant coach, nothing was more fascinating than watching Allen break down the game while showing actual game day footage. Such were the beginnings of TJ Troop, a man now widely known as football statistical archaeologist. So in the birth of football's modern 4-3 defense, the 7 seasons that changed the NFL, Troop walked through this book talking about the game's transition from the 5-2-4 defense to the 4-3-4 defense. That sounds like a bit of math, it isn't. It's simply breaking down the game. That's what coaches do. They break down each count, hike, fake, clinch, step, pass, run, catch, score, hit, and hit to see where the play began and why it ended the way it did. People who do this, and you are clearly one of them if you are reading this, love the strategy of the game. You love seeing how the play unfolds. You love seeing the cause and effect of every shift in the defensive line, the linebackers, and the defensive backfield. Because in football, as in life, when we break things down, we can go back and see what turns in the road led to the road where we are on now. So breaking down the evolution of the modern defense, TJ Troop is bringing it to where we are now. Not a simple task, but Troop takes on a like of swift cutting defender, reading, dogging, and blitzing the task with instrumental night. Troop is telling us what happened, how, and why. In doing so, he shines a light on an era where many may have cast off like an old jersey whose numbers are worn and torn. Troop would let us forget the numbers on the men are on the field. We should. Any Hall of Fame coach noted within this book, George Halas, Vince Lombardi, Paul Brown, Tom Landry, George Allen, would have loved to have TJ Troop on his staff. His passion, focus, and keen attention to detail will prove to be invaluable to any coach's staff. Now, this is written by Jennifer Allen. She was the daughter of George Allen, saying that that his father, George Allen, would have loved to have Troop on his team, and this book would have been within easy reach on his office desk. So that's the foreword. So let's get into the introduction. My following page is in the in-depth saga of all 12 teams for 7 years, 1953 to 1959. During this time period, pro football was in a transitional phase on both offense and defense. Passing efficiency improved, thus more passes were thrown. The main reason for the improved efficiency was innovative strategy and ways to attack the 5-2-4 defense. The defense began to counter this success by evolving to a 4-3-4 defense. Later in this book, this aspect will be examined in detail by profiling Joe Smith of the Lions, other men who played the position of middle linebacker. The coaching staff is listed along with responsibilities of these men, if known. Next up is personnel, simply stated who played what position or positions. Having watched as much film as possible of this era allowed me to correctly list how many teams align who played where, and there are multiple sources who have attempted to list starting lineups, and every one of those sources has failed. If you feel compelled to challenge that statement, then come to Tustin. I will gladly hand you a cup of coffee, put the film on. Then you will observe what I have in regard to positions played. The third part of this saga is what has been gleaned from the game-by-game statistics for each team. All areas have been examined: rushing, passing, receiving, interceptions, sacks, and kick returns. Seasonal totals are also addressed, especially how each specific team played defense against the run based upon winning and losing. Offensive totals are also listed in regards to winning and losing. I have long been a disciple of a key evaluation tool, team pass defense efficiency, otherwise known as the passer rating system. Many years have passed since, according to the person that wrote this introduction, shared the passer rating system with Steve Sable. The person feels strongly about this stat today, as then when there was a discussion about legitimate ways to evaluate team pass defense in his office. Having this data gave clarity, and thus the segment has had what the stats tell us. The fourth part is to take the reader back in time, specific game for which each team during the year specified. At times, this was a real challenge, as there are seasons where a team might have played many a game of significance. Having a background in coaching raised many questions as the play-by-plays were examined and the film digested. Why did a coach not go back to a play or plays that worked earlier? How come the defense did not adjust their alignment to stop effective plays by the offense? So many times as the film crossed, again, the screen crossed over the screen, I found myself asking coaches of this era all those fateful questions. I did not get any answers, but hence the of the chapter. Boy, would any coach or historian register to ask questions of the men who made the strategic decisions. Imagine, if you will, Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi raises his voice when challenged on how he blocked a certain play on Tom Landry in his Texas accent. He telling to me in an analytical way how his gap control defense will stop a running play. So whether they be coaches, quarterbacks, linebackers, having answers will sure be entertaining. But the final paragraph of each section is a short summation of the season. The most in-depth chapter in the book details the evolution of the 4-3 defense from the 5-2. Special thank you for Mr. Joe Smith, who basically answered in detail questions that the author asked him, and many questions on how the Detroit Lions played their 4-3 defense. The insights he gave were shared in the chapter. So there have been coaches who actually claim to have used the 4-3 first, but more important than their misplaced ego is not simply who first used this defense, but which team or teams used it the highest percentage of the time, who did it best. One of the goals of this book is to educate the reader, yet there are still more goals to accomplish. Over each of the 12 teams would like to have an accurate history of their team. There are teams that do not have a complete list of all the players that took the field for them in this era, what additional jersey numbers and certain players wore that never been listed. But the league manuals for this era have a number of statistical errors, accuracy in the number of games played, as long as game is specific to school category. Should be corrected. Hopefully the Elias Sports Bureau will be open to those corrections. So I'm going to start with, we're going to go over everything. 1953 Detroit Lions, they were the NFL champions. They finished 10-2. So in the chapter, they go over Chicago Cardinals, who won 10-1, finished 6th in the Eastern Conference. Joe Stoddard, who new success as a player, assistant coach, head coach, league champion Rams 1951, during a 44-game span between November 24, 1946 through October 29, 1950, the Cardinals won 31 games. The next 30 games showed Chicago in a downward spiral, winning only 9 games. Could Jumbo Joe turn the Cardinals around? Skip Staley, Backs, and Dick Gallagher ends were in their only year as assistants for the Cardinals, while Ernie George Letter 9 was in the first year. Let's look at the personnel. "41 men suited up for the Cardinals at some point in the 53 campaign. 11 were in their own year. The 13 rookies making the team, Don Stonesifer and Gern Nagler, ranked among the league leaders in receptions all year. Both of them had a game of 10 catches, though neither could be considered a deep threat. They had both displayed excellent hands, ran precise patterns. Cliff Anderson opened the year at left end, but gone after one game, and thus the only reliable end to help was starting safety Ray Ramsey at 12 catches. Ricky Tom Higgins was the starting left tackle. Hard charging Jack Jennings at right tackle gave the Cardinals stability at that position. Ricky's Ed Husband and Jerry Watford began the year at the guard positions, yet during the second half of the campaign, Dave Summerski received plenty of playing time. Veteran Jack Simmons was a reliable center. With Ali Matson serving the country, a runner was needed. So with the fourth pick in the draft came Johnny Azuski. His rookie year was so productive he earned a trip to Pro Bowl, receiving some All-Pro recognition, only corner to do so. Veteran star Charlie Trippi was the leading rusher for Chicago. He usually played left halfback. Billy Cross started at halfback on the right, yet starting left corner. Don Paul also rotated in that position. The position at quarterback was dismal. His 23rd round pick, Jim Root, played in all 12 games, gaining just 1,149 yards on his 192 passes. For the first 4 games of the year, free agent Ray Nagel shared time with Root. Nagel completed many of his short passes on opening day against Washington. They plummeted as he completed only 11 of 33 for just 86 yards in the next and last 3 games of his NFL career. The Chicago traded defensive back S.J. Whitman to the Bears for Steve Romanek, completing only 40 of 102 passes in his first 4 games as a Cardinal, got him a seat on the bench, though he returns to play sparingly the last 2 games of the season. By the most effective passer was Charlie Trippi. When Chicago went on to a spread formation, Trippi's options of running or passing denied the Cardinal offense. The Cardinals, with 28th pick in the draft, took J.L. Samuels, who was on the roster just for the opening day game against Washington. Defensively, the Cardinals preferred a 5-3-3 defense, yet sometimes they aligned in a 4-3 front with the wide side linebacker walked off on the receiver. This hybrid position was usually played by Ricky Tony Cucillo, depending on the defensive call. Bill Svoboda was aligned at left defensive end, outside linebacker. He was a mobile. He was a side tackler. Bill will be chosen for the Pro Bowl for his efforts. Veteran Bob Dove began the year at left defensive end in a 5-man front. But down the stretch, George Smith became the starter. Defensive tackles, middle guard, again, depending on the front call, were Vonnie Peters, Nick Chickillo, Don Joyce, Jerry Groom. The defensive end on the right was played by Tom Benjamin. So playing linebacker was hard-nosed John Pinelli. Right linebacker was Leo Sanford, also played defensive end. Starting at left corner was versatile, athletic Pro Bowl bound Don Paul. A savvy hardball for Hulk went 7-3 against New York on November 1st. Rookie Jimmy Saltis started at right corner and got a baptism by fire with almost pure man-to-man coverage. Real team veteran Ray Ramsey started at safety and was a superb pass defender as he intercepted 10. One of the few modern defensive backs to intercept at least 10 passes in a 12-game season and not be chosen for the Pro Bowl. Ramsey was a willing run defender despite his lack of heft. Chicago ranked 10th in the defensive passer rating category with a mark of 64.4, ranked dead last in yards per attempt at 7.68. Though Simmons punted adequately when called upon, Trippi was a far superior punter. Pat Summerall made only 9 of 24 field goals. Chicago's punt coverage, with the exception of Frank Gifford's 4-yard return, was brilliant. His opponents gained just 24 yards on 43 returns. The Cardinals' kickoff coverage was not nearly as effective. Early in the year, Wally Triplett ranked among the league leaders in kickoff return average, while Charlie Trippi led the league in punt return average. With the stats tell us, Chicago allowed opponents 124 yards a game, rushing in the 2 games, and won and tied. 141 a game in the 10 losses. The Cardinals averaged 157 yards a game rushing in the 2 games they won and tied. with only 86 a game and 10 losses. Game of significance was on November 15th, the 5-2 Los Angeles Rams need a win to stay in the race with the San Francisco 49ers. Detroit Lions. The Cardinals are hoping to make their visit to Comiskey Park a memorable one. So in the first quarter, the winless Cardinals scored first on a screen pass to Johnny Ozuski from Jim Root. Johnny scampers down the left sideline for 62 yards as Jack Simmons throws the key block. Ron Van Brocken overthrows Hurst down the middle. Ray Ramsey intercepts and returns 20 yards to the Los Angeles 31. Lee Cross on a sweep left out of full house. T formation backfield alignment. Gets the ball to the Ram 20. The Cardinals drive stalls. Pat Summerall, in his first year in Chicago, kicked a 16-yard field goal. Later in the quarter, Van Brocken's errant pass is again intercepted by Ramsey. Ray totes the ball 37 yards for a touchdown. Second quarter, Ben Agajanian kicks a 27-yard field goal. Skeets Quinlan scores from 2 yards out as the quarterback Rudy Vukic sparks a rally at the Chicago 17, Los Angeles 10. Third quarter, Los Angeles kicks off. Lee Cross fumbles. Right corner, Richard Knight, Train Lane returns the phone 26 yards for a touchdown, and the game is tied. Fourth quarter, Don Tolliver's 1-yard smash. With left guard, which is a set. Troy Trippier has gained 96 yards rushing, mostly out of the spread formation, yet on the Cardinals' final drive, he attempts 8 passes. Trippier completes to Stonesifer for 15 and 17 yards out of the spread. He then goes to Ramsey for 15 yards, Nagler for 8. Finally, a dart to Don Paul between the goal post and the night in the zone. Chicago circle ran for 17 yards, a tying touchdown. For the day, Trippier completed 11 of 16 for 17 yards, the last touchdown pass of his career. The Cardinals achieved victory on the final day of the year against the hapless Bears. Yet this is the high point of the season for Jumbo, Joe, and the Chicago Cardinals. Summation is that Steinhardt must find a reliable quarterback and adjust his defensive strategy and secondary to have his team become competitive. Right, so that concludes that. Tomorrow, look at the Green Bay Packers. They had a 2-9-1 record. They were 6th in the Western Conference. Head coach Jim Ronzani. And go over that. One team at a time. The 1953 season. So this includes look at the birth of football's modern 4-3 defense and the 7 seasons that changed the NFL. Already in 1953, I talked about the Chicago Cardinals. And tomorrow I'll be talking about the Green Bay Packers of 1953. Thanks for hitting the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Till then, talk to you soon.